I was sitting by the floor-to-ceiling window of my downtown apartment, the early sunlight brushing across the silk blouse I'd chosen for today's meetings. The skyline shimmered, but my mind wasn't on the city. It was on the vibration of my phone buzzing insistently on the marble countertop. I hesitated, tracing the rim of my coffee cup with a fingertip, feeling the warmth seep into my palm, before finally picking it up. A text from an unknown number flashed. "You still planning to marry him?" I blinked, the edges of my perfect morning fraying. My heart skipped, not with fear, exactly, but with a familiar, sharp pang of irritation and memory. The words dredged up a time when someone I thought I could trust had tried to dictate my life, my choices, my very happiness. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the faint hum of traffic below, the scent of roasted coffee beans mingling with the crisp linen of my apartment. I had a life now, a life that gleamed like the rings on my fingers and the sleek glass on my desk, but certain truths had been buried to get here. The message was more than curiosity. It was a reminder, a summons. And I realized, with a mix of irony and quiet defiance, that I had the power to rewrite the ending, my way. I can still remember that evening as if it were etched in my skin. The air in my childhood home felt thick, almost suffocating, like the tension itself was a third person in the room. My brother, Luke, had just landed himself in trouble, big trouble, and my husband at the time, Jason, had demanded that I cancel my own wedding to help him. I was 24, dressed in a pale blue dress I had bought with my own savings. My hands shook as I tried to keep my voice steady. "Jason, you can't, this is my life too. I've waited for this. Planned for this." But he didn't listen. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "Olivia, family comes first. You can't just be selfish. You're supposed to support me, not throw your brother under the bus." His words hit me like ice water. A lump rose in my throat, and I bit it back. My chest felt tight, my nails dug into my palms. I had always believed in fairness, in loyalty, but this was betrayal dressed up as duty. Then my grandmother's words echoed in my mind, the ones she whispered to me the night I confided in her. "Olivia, don't let anyone decide the shape of your life. The world will try, but your heart has the map." I looked at the little silver locket she had given me for my birthday, a tiny compass etched inside. I touched it and felt a rush of resolve. I realized that if I surrendered to Jason's demand, I would lose more than a wedding. I would lose myself. So I made the decision right then. I refused. I chose to stand alone if I had to protect the life I envisioned for myself. That night, as the argument ended with slamming doors and Jason storming out, I felt the sting of rejection, yes, but also a strange, exhilarating sense of clarity. For the first time, I understood. I didn't need anyone's permission to carve my path. And deep down, I knew this choice would shape every triumph and every heartbreak that lay ahead. After that night, I packed a single suitcase, kissed my grandmother's forehead, and left behind a home that no longer felt like mine. The first weeks were the hardest. I moved into a tiny studio apartment in the city, where the walls were bare, the floor creaked, and the sunlight barely touched the corners. But it was mine. And for the first time, I felt the weight of my own choices instead of the expectations of others. I found a job at a small marketing firm, doing grunt work late nights at a cramped desk, learning to write copy that actually sold. My mentor, a woman named Rachel, noticed my determination. She had a way of seeing potential where others saw inexperience. "Olivia," she said one evening, "you've got fire. Don't let anyone snuff it out before the world sees it." Her words stuck with me, echoing my grandmother's compass locket. The next few years were a blur of spreadsheets, client pitches, and endless rejection emails. I remember sitting at my desk at 2 a.m., eyes stinging, coffee cooling beside me, fingers trembling as I typed out yet another proposal that might never be noticed. But slowly my efforts paid off. The first time a client called me personally to say, "Olivia, this campaign changed our business," I felt a rush of pride that made every sleepless night worth it. I began investing wisely, saving quietly, and building a network of people who respected me not for who I was supposed to be, but for who I was proving to be. I never posted about my victories online, never boasted to friends or family. Each step forward was a quiet rebellion, a small secret triumph that belonged solely to me. Then came my first big break, an acquisition opportunity that allowed me to start my own boutique firm. My office was modest at first, but I filled it with things that mattered: a painting my grandmother had given me, a vintage clock that reminded me of persistence, and the compass locket that never left my neck. I was building more than a business. I was building a life where my choices mattered, where my voice had weight. And through it all, I carried the memory of that night with Jason, the demand, the betrayal, the hurt. Every contract I signed, every client I impressed, every milestone I reached was a quiet declaration: I would never surrender my life for anyone else's whims again. It wasn't flashy. No one knew the late nights, the tears, the silent victories. But in my quiet triumphs, I found power, the kind of power that doesn't just change your bank account, but transforms the person staring back at you in the mirror each morning. The knock on my office door came sharp and unexpected. I glanced up from my reports, my fingers lingering on the polished oak desk, and felt a jolt of recognition before I even saw their faces.
Luke.
Jason. And, impossibly, my former fiancé's parents. They had come expecting to see the struggling girl they thought had stumbled in life. Maybe they even expected tears. Maybe they expected me to grovel or explain myself. But the woman who stood behind my desk today was nothing like that frightened girl from years ago. I rose slowly, letting them take in the space around them. The walls were lined with abstract paintings, each a reflection of battles fought and small victories celebrated. A sculpture by a local artist caught the sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting like a silent herald of my independence. My desk bore only a few personal touches: the silver compass locket my grandmother had given me, a stack of contracts I'd signed that morning, and a single framed photo of Rachel, my mentor, who had believed in me when no one else would. Jason's jaw tightened. "Olivia," his voice faltered, the sharpness gone. I gave him a small, measured smile. "You called." Luke shuffled uncomfortably, eyes darting to the sleek glass doors behind me. We just thought we'd see how you're doing." I gestured to the corner of the office, where a display case held the documents of my firm's latest acquisition. "How I'm doing? Let me show you. I am the founder and CEO of Bennett Marketing Group. Last quarter, we secured deals totaling over $3 million. And these," I said, tapping the framed contracts, "are just the beginning." Silence. The kind of silence that presses against your skin, heavy and electric. I let it linger, watching disbelief and shock flash across their faces. Jason's mouth opened, closed, opened again, but no words came. Luke's hands fidgeted nervously. Even his parents looked as though the floor might open and swallow them whole. Then I stepped closer, letting my heels click softly against the hardwood, letting the authority I had built wrap around me like a second skin. "I didn't fail," I said, voice calm but cutting. "I chose my life. I chose myself. And I succeeded. On my terms, not yours." Jason's lips tightened into a thin line. "But we thought you." "You thought wrong," I interrupted. "I didn't cancel my wedding for your brother. I didn't surrender my life for anyone's whims. And instead of waiting, hoping, or begging for validation, I built everything I wanted, without needing your permission." Luke swallowed hard, eyes downcast. He couldn't meet mine. Jason's face was pale, his arrogance chipped away by the reality standing in front of him. And I, Olivia Bennett, finally felt the sweet, undeniable thrill of being untouchable, not in wealth, but in self-respect. For the first time in years, I realized that power wasn't about revenge or proving anyone wrong. It was about showing them the life I had carved with my own hands, letting my success speak louder than any argument, any plea, any betrayal ever could. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms over my chest, and let the moment stretch. They had seen me, the woman who had endured their doubts, their demands, their betrayals, and now they were face to face with the truth. I was in charge of my life, and nothing could take that from me. Jason's voice finally came, quieter this time. Olivia, I held up a hand. Stop. I don't need excuses. What I need is clarity. I built this life on my own, and I will not bend for anyone who tried to control it. Luke swallowed, and I softened my tone slightly. You're my brother. I care about you, but you have to understand that my choices are mine. If you want my support, you will meet me halfway. That means taking responsibility, learning from mistakes, and stepping into your own life instead of expecting me to carry yours. Jason's face fell. I could see the arrogance fading, replaced by the raw awareness of his failures. And you, he asked, almost hesitantly. I met his gaze, calm and unyielding. I can forgive, but I cannot forget. If you want to be part of my life again, you need to respect my independence. That means no more ultimatums, no more demands, and no expectation that I will sacrifice my happiness for you, or anyone else. I paused, letting my words sink in. I built this life with grit, patience, and vision. I did not do it to prove anything to you. I did it to prove it to myself. If you want to be part of this chapter, you follow my rules. If not, that's your choice. Luke's eyes glistened, a mix of shame and understanding. Jason's jaw tightened, but I could see comprehension flicker behind his guarded expression. Even his parents seemed to finally grasp the reality of what their daughter-in-law, or more accurately, the woman they had underestimated, had accomplished. I finished with a final note of firm compassion. I will help you if you truly want to grow. But the conditions are simple. Take accountability, pursue your own ambitions, and abandon the toxic patterns that nearly ruined us all. Only then do we move forward. Not as the submissive fiancée, but as Olivia Bennett, a woman who respects herself and expects respect in return. A long silence followed. I could feel the shift in the room, the recalibration of power. For the first time, I wasn't pleading. I wasn't bargaining. I was defining terms, and for the first time, my life felt completely, unquestionably mine. And in that moment, I realized the real victory wasn't in making them realize my worth. It was in knowing I had already claimed it for myself. Weeks passed, and slowly, subtly, the changes began. Luke enrolled in a course he had long postponed, showing up with determination I hadn't seen before. Jason reached out, not with demands, but with cautious respect, acknowledging the boundaries I had set. Even his parents softened, realizing that the girl they had once underestimated was no longer defined by their expectations. I watched it all from my apartment one evening, the city lights shimmering below like tiny fires of possibility. The compass locket rested against my chest, warm against the silk of my blouse. My grandmother's words echoed again. Your heart has the map. And now I finally understood them fully. Every choice I had made, every risk, every sleepless night, every moment of standing my ground, it had led me here. I smiled, a quiet, self-assured curve of lips. I thought of Rachel, my mentor, and the small victories we had celebrated in our modest office. Those nights of struggle, the doubts and tears, had not been in vain. They had shaped me into a woman who could walk into any room, face any challenge, and know her worth without seeking approval. The symbolic silver locket glinted in the evening light, a reminder that my journey was both inward and outward. I had built a life that reflected not just success, but resilience, courage, and self-respect. And I knew, deep in my bones, that no one could take that from me. I poured myself a cup of coffee, inhaling the rich aroma as I watched the city hum with life. For the first time, it wasn't about proving anything to anyone else. It was about the woman I had become, fully, unapologetically. And as I closed my eyes for a moment, savoring the quiet power of this realization, I whispered to no one but myself. I chose my life. I chose me. And I would do it all again, exactly this way.